Good morning. Great to see you all today. Welcome, welcome. Last week we began a new series called Imagine Together. We are wading into that challenge to imagine together. However, imagining can be a difficult task for those of us over the age of 6. And we might not do much together in our society these days. But without much imagination and without togetherness, we are lost. We are broken. We need holy, radical strength so that miracles may happen in our midst, that people may come together across divides, and that the very earth itself may become whole. Let us breathe in the peace of God, the light of love. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish people, including the Duwamish tribe who are still here. We boldly proclaim that this is a place of radical welcome and inclusion, and pray that we would continue to find ways to put action to our seeking of justice. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, may you find grace and peace and hope here today and at Alki UCC.
Today's scripture reading is Isaiah chapter 35, verses 1 through 4, and 6b through 8a from The Voice. Imagine the wilderness whooping for joy, the desert's unbridled happiness with its spring flowers. It will happen. The deserts will come alive with new growth budding and blooming, singing and celebrating with sheer delight. The glory of Lebanon's cedars and the majesty of Carmel and Sharon will spill over to the deserts. The glory of the Eternal One will be on full display there, and they will revel in the majestic splendor of our God. So, with confidence and hope in this message, strengthen those with feeble hands, shore up the weak-kneed and weary. Tell those who worry, the anxious and fearful, take strength, have courage. There's nothing to fear. Look here, your God. Right here is your God. The balance is shifting. God will right all wrongs. None other than God will give you success. God is coming to make you safe. Waters will pour through the deserts. Streams will flow in God-forsaken lands. Burning sands and hardening wastelands will become pools shimmering with life. The thirsty ground will drink deep from refreshing springs. Abandoned villages where predators once lurked will become grassy playgrounds. Dry, arid land will turn lush and green, and the road to this happy renovation will be clearly signed. People will declare the way itself to be holy, the route sacred.
I grew up surrounded by a lot of sand in western Michigan. We lived about a mile from the beach, and I loved to wade in the water to cool off in the summer. On really hot days, it felt like our feet were on fire, burning as we ran through the sand on the way to the water. Even wearing sandals didn't stop the sand from seeping in and burning our feet, yelping, ouch, 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 with every step. And our house was built on sand. Our front yard was what we called the pit. It was a large sandy ditch covered with dune grass. It was quite a conversation piece. I thought it was kind of cool. "Oh, you have a pit in your front yard," my friends would say. I'll never forget the 4th of July. We were lighting some fireworks with our neighbors, and one of those fireworks flew right into the pit, and flames just shot up so high into the air. All the adults leapt to put it out, and they did. I was hiding in the car. That dry sand and that dune grass was the perfect environment for fire. Dry land can be pretty unforgiving. We've seen it with the increase of forest fires, the devastation from our changing climate. And I imagine the Israelites trekking through endless dry desert sand. Harsh weather and lack of water would have been constant companions. On the uneven ground, their sandals would sluggishly sink into the hot terrain. Ouch, 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 ouch. Disoriented, thirsty, exhausted. They relied on God and one another. They kept each other going by remembering how God had brought them to that very point. The prophet Isaiah called on the people to remember the past and remember the future. To remember what God had done and understand that it is what God will do. They had been delivered from slavery and shown the way to freedom, and God was with them all the way. Miracles are around every corner, and grace rushes in like water. The desert blooms. Reversal. Isaiah 35 says, "Imagine the wilderness whooping for joy, the desert's unbridled happiness with its spring flowers. It will happen. The deserts will come alive with new growth budding and blooming, singing and celebrating with sheer delight." God works in reversals. And so if we find ourselves at a loss, at the edge of despair, or a bit short on hope, perhaps we might look for the possibility of reversal. To do the thing we're not doing. The version of this text we read today is called "The Road to Renovation." I think that's the thing we're not doing. The thing that's ahead, that we all want to be doing, and it's right there. It's right in reach. The road to renovation. And it says this road to happy renovation will be clearly signed. We'll see it. We'll know it's the way. Our guts will tell us. The Spirit will nudge us. People will declare the way itself to be holy, the route sacred. The road to renovation is not the road to ease. To restore something, to improve it, to make it better, that's hard work. Anybody ever engaged in a house renovation? Yeah. Yeah. We haven't. We engage in renovation not only with material things, but with our very lives. We see the road ahead, and we know that is where we must be. It's a road of reversals. That's what God is up to. God loves to turn things right on their head. How might we join in that? When we hear a message of hate, how might we utter a message of peace, of love? When we are restless or agitated or angry or feeling hopeless or helpless, where is the reversal? What is the unexpected thing? Where's the grace? Maybe it's in making art or calling a friend or political advocacy. If we are doom scrolling, caught in Facebook's never-ending clutches, it might mean putting away that phone and getting outside and breathing some fresh air. Reversal. If we're spending more time consuming television than we are in living our own stories, television is my personal vice, it might mean turning off the TV and making plans to live out our own story. Reversal. Our Black Lives Matter flag is torn, and we plan a community, collaborative art and social justice event. Reversal. A world made whole is about reversals, transformation. The desert blooms. I read about an artist who kept putting off making art because they thought they needed a big chunk of time to really be able to create something great. Then she heard the words of a fellow artist who said, the truth is, if you can't put 15 minutes a day into your art, then you're making an excuse. And this artist wrote, I admit I was skeptical that 15 minutes would be enough to accomplish much, and I couldn't imagine that such a short amount of time would even begin to satisfy my hungry inner artist. But waiting until I had big chunks of time to work in my studio had gotten me nowhere. Has anybody experienced this? Yeah. She wrote, for over a decade, I'd lamented that I never had enough time to do my art. Surely even 15 minutes would be better than nothing. In fact, my 15 minutes a day experiment resulted in my most prolific year ever. It stretched well beyond that original first month, and in 1 year, I had created more art than I had in the previous decade, over 150 finished pieces. She goes on to say, but it didn't just make a difference for my art life. This experiment had effects that rippled out into the rest of my life too. When I finally made space in my day, even just a handful of minutes, to do something I loved, but had somehow been resisting for years, I realized that my previous inability to find a way to make time for my art was just an excuse. However, I had clung to this excuse not because making art wasn't important to me. To the contrary, it was precisely because it was so very important to me that I couldn't seem to get myself to do it. Maybe you can relate to this artist. I know I can. Whether it's art or any other goal that we have, we don't always make time for what is most important to us because we want to get it right. Or we don't want to risk failing. Or everything else might change. But that thing we feel called to do just might lead us to wing our way closer to wholeness. Reversal is not always easy. We run through hot sand to get to the water. How might we imagine a world made whole? How might we participate in a reversal to do that thing we are not doing? Perhaps you've seen photos of Palestinians in those miserable hot tents. Shelters they had constructed to keep out the cold, covered in plastic sheeting and blankets to stay warm, but now they are ovens. When they first erected their tents, they had no idea their displacement would extend past the winter. Now they're sweltering. They need a reversal. We feel at a loss, but there is always something we can do. Writing our representatives, getting on our knees in prayer, donating money, keeping hope alive. The Hebrew people that Isaiah wrote this poem about were without homes. They had tents that they took down and put up and kept traveling from place to place. They lived with threats of starvation, attacked by wild animals, attacked by enemies. Isaiah prophesied a radical transformation. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The earth will be renewed. The people will be renewed. Everything will burst with joyful new life. This is the promise. But we don't have to wait until the end of time for glimpses of this promise to be fulfilled. Already we can make out a highway, a path of renovation. Isaiah prophesied that on this path no one shall go astray, saying, a highway shall be there. It shall be called the Holy Way. This is the journey of faith. On this path, we walk through a desert, but it is a desert that blooms. It is a path of new life and beckons us to make choices along the way. This sacred route reminds me of a poem by David White. It's called Just Beyond Yourself. Just beyond yourself. It's where you need to be. Half a step into self-forgetting and the rest restored by what you'll meet. There is a road always beckoning. When you see the two sides of it closing together at that far horizon and deep in the foundations of your own heart at exactly the same time, that's how you know it's the road you have to follow. That's how you know it's where you have to go. That's how you know you have to go. That's how you know. Just beyond yourself. It's where you need to be. Joining in God's holy way means stepping out of our comfort zone and trusting that we will be empowered for the work of transformation and the hope of new life. Reversals are all around us. The United Methodist Church deciding that actually love is love, repealing their ban on LGBTQ plus clergy. Thanks be to God. A sign of desert blooming. When someone reaches out for help and they realize they can't navigate their struggle alone, that is the desert blooming. It blooms when forgiveness begins, when someone who has been holding so tightly to their resentment opens just one finger. The desert blooms. When we give out of a sense of abundance and not scarcity, it blooms when we make everyday choices that care for our earth, when we refuse to buy things that we don't really need. We do a thing to participate in a world made whole. We start somewhere with something. Even 15 minutes a day can be a miracle that weaves scattered pieces into wholeness. Where in your life is a reversal needed? What is broken and needs to be mended? What dry earth thirsts for water? Let us imagine together a world made whole.